Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Make sure you guys hit that like button on your way in. We got a lot to talk about today. Wait for a couple more people to join. All right. We're going to talk about Crawford. We're going to talk about Canelo Alvarez, Roger Ortiz, all that good stuff. What's up, High Tech? What's up, Shadow Boxing? What's up, Punch Quote? We're going to get right into all of that. Punch Quote, I saw your comments. We're going to talk about that. And, you know, when I first saw the comment by Bud, I knew it was going to get a lot of people to react. Kano, what's up, man? Marshall, Leo, everyone. I know a lot of people are going to go crazy. And if you are new here, well, if you're not new here, and most of you aren't new here, you know my stance on Canelo, and you know my stance on Terrence Bud Crawford. Crawford is my favorite active fighter. All right, I'm a big fan of Bud Crawford. You know, he's my favorite active. And when I say favorite, he's my favorite in the ring. What they do out, these fighters do outside of the ring, I really don't care for. It's all about what they do in the ring with me. Crawford is my favorite fighter, but I believe that Canelo is pound for pound #1 in the sport. You know, and I have Bud at #2. But we're gonna talk about this. Virgil Ortiz wins and beats Maurice Hooker. That is Crawford's boy. This is his boy, you know. So, you know, Crawford was out there supporting. So was Errol Spence. Errol Spence is actually cool with Maurice Hooker, too. And all those guys are Texas boys. You know, all these guys are from Texas. Hooker is from Texas. Crawford, I mean, not Crawford, but Spence, Ortiz. They're all from Texas. But, yo, you know, Virgil Ortiz wins, calls out Crawford. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about call-outs at this point, but I don't believe him anymore. And I'm not saying that Ortiz is lying, but I believe when a fight is signed and sealed and scheduled. That's the only time I believe. G Funky, what up, bro? That's the only time I believe a fight is going to happen, when it's actually scheduled. Like right now, I don't believe that Fury and Joshua is happening until it's actually scheduled. We have a date, we have an arena. You know, these guys is showing videos of them training and preparing and sparring and stuff. That's when I believe a fight is going to happen. I don't believe a fight is going to happen when a fighter calls a fighter out. And I've been consistent with that. So Ortiz calling out Crawford is cool. I'm not saying he doesn't want the fight. He does. I don't know. All I know is that he is highly ranked at the WBO sanctioning body, and he's up either next. If the Porter fight doesn't happen, I don't know if he's going to be made mandatory. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but there's a good chance he may be fighting Bud, which is great. I think Ortiz proved that he is ready for a championship fight, that he is good enough to fight any top guy at 147, whether it's Spence, Bud, Thurman, Pacquiao, whoever he decides to fight. I think he is good enough to do it. And that's my views on it. You know, but call outs at this point, a call out doesn't mean anything no more. Once upon a time, call outs, guys stepping in the ring and calling each other out, getting face to face and all that. Once upon a time, it was cool. It was cool when Mosley did it to Floyd Mayweather. You know what I'm saying? Those were cool, but it's done. You know, because guys are calling each other out just to promote their names and build up a fight with another opponent. So I'm not saying that Ortiz doesn't really want the fight. All I'm saying is that people are taking that call out and making it seem as if, okay, he's pushing to fight Bud. Bud doesn't seem like he's really that interested in fighting him next. So now Bud is like potentially ducking Ortiz too. He doesn't want to fight anyone good. Now, let's talk about the topic at hand. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ortiz, but let's talk about Bud. He made a comment about Canelo ducking, or being shielded from guys like Charlo, Andrade, and black fighters in general. I don't know where the comment came from. You guys already know my stance on this because I've spoken on this before because people like saying this. I have a question for you guys that's in the comments. When did Daniel Jacobs' black card get removed? When did that happen? Answer that question. When did Daniel Jacobs' black card get officially removed? Because the last time I checked, he's a black American fighter from New York. And he's a very versatile fighter at that. He's not a brawler. He's a highly technical black American fighter. And Canelo fought him recently. So why doesn't he count? Now, I believe that any black fighter that isn't part of Showtime, Fox, PBC, Al Heyman, it becomes questionable. Their blackness becomes questionable. I believe that any fighter that is black, that is not American, sometimes can be questionable. Like a lot of black American fighters don't count Anthony Joshua as being black or Kell Brook as being black. It's just stupid, right? It's just, I know where it comes from, but it's a stupid thought process to me. Whatever way you feel about Daniel Jacobs, he is a black fighter, period. Like, let's end that. And I've said this before, because Canelo, and I'm going to get to Canelo. So, don't come in here thinking that this is just a Canelo defense video, because I'm going to get to Canelo, but I wanted everything to make sense, because I think when people come out with their views, they get so extreme and they lose all logic. I do not agree with Terrence Bud Crawford with these comments. I'm actually tired of people saying that, because black fighters are not fighting black fighters. Terrence Crawford, and people are slandering him now. And the slander is going to come when you make these comments. The slander is going to come. That's what happens. But because Crawford said these comments, now people are making a scene and questioning his resume, like, okay, but where are the black fighters what black fighters are you fighting? Now we know why he doesn't have these black fighters on his resume. And let's talk more about this black fighter thing. Let's go right back, because Kell Brook, he's black, but he's not black American. But if you really look at the way he fights technically, he's more slick than Errol Spence Jr. He's more slick than Sean Porter. And when he fought Bud, he's fighting a technical fight with Bud. He's not fighting a rugged fight like Spence did with him or Sean Porter did with him. You know what I'm saying? Kell Brook is slicker than Spence and Porter. And he's in there with Bud, trying to out-counter Bud and beating him to the punch. He's not using his size to beat the smaller Crawford. So this logic is so stupid. It's like Kell Brook is really slick. Like, if you took him, if he wasn't a British fighter and he was born and raised in America and he spoke differently, will we be having this conversation about him not being a black fighter? No, because all black fighters don't fight the same. And we got to stop generalizing it, because all Hispanic fighters, Latino fighters don't fight the same either. So can we stop generalizing, because every fighter doesn't fight the same. Canelo does not fight like Jaime Munguia. He doesn't fight like Jaime Munguia. He doesn't fight like Jaime Munguia doesn't fight like Antonio Margarito. You know, it's like, where are we going with this? Like, this is where are we going with this shit? I'm tired of hearing this. Like, this, where are we going with this? Like, can we stop? Can we just end this, please? And stop talking about, like, we can have our biases. It's cool. You can like I like Daniel Jacobs. You know why? Because he's black and he's from New York. Right? So I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite fighters because I love his story. I have my New York bias for him, like Zab Judah. I love Zab Judah. Like, he's a legend to me. In New York, he's a legend. But Cotto's a legend to me too, because when Cotto fight in New York, it's a New York thing. Like, you guys got to understand, when Cotto was fighting in New York on a Puerto Rican Day weekend, we got the parade every year. We was getting the Puerto Rican Day parade. We was getting a Cotto fight. It was like it was live. Just like when Zab fought in New York, it was a big deal. You know, it was a big deal. Now, Cotto fight in New York might not have been as much to blacks as it was to Puerto Ricans. Obviously not. But I was a boxing fan back then. So Cotto fighting in New York, I'm a diehard boxing fan. I love the fight. You know, but Zab, you know, Daniel Jacobs, you know, Peter Quillen, all these fighters that's from New York, you kind of just love them because they're from New York. So I have my personal biases. But yo, we got to stop generalizing just fighters based on the color of their skin, because all of these fighters are different. Like, and we got to stop with the whole black fighter thing, because the whole black fighter thing, it's like, if you're a black and you're American and you speak a certain way, you're considered to be a black fighters by black Americans. And I'm telling you, that's just a black American thing. Like, a lot of black people from outside of this country don't have the same way of thinking. And I know that because I speak to them all the time. And I know people that are from around the world. They don't have that same way of thinking. You know, a lot of black American fans don't look at the African fighters the same way, or the European blacks the same way. You know, we don't consider them to be black for some reason. That's why it's like a lot of people from here don't like Joshua, because he talks and he moves a different way than a blacks from America. You know, you can't compare Deontay Wilder in the way he's moved. He's from the South. You can't compare him to Joshua. A lot of people will consider him more black than Joshua because Joshua carries himself a certain way. And it's a stupid way of thinking, but it's just, that's the way people think, you know? So Bud made these comments. Now, this is the thing about Canelo. Let's completely remove Jamal Charlo out this. And shout out to Jamal Charlo, because that's my guy. Him and the twins. I love those two. Those are my dudes. But Jamal Charlo, I'm not really sure where to go with him when it comes to fights he won, because he went on record, he went on in an interview. We see him actually say out his own mouth he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade. I know for a fact that he has no interest of fighting Demetrius Andrade. Another thing, him and Jacobs actually had face-to-face contact with each other, talking back and forth, and they never fought each other. Just like Jamal Charlo, right? Same thing. I mean, not Jamal. Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. Same thing with them. They actually have a real beef, and they never fought each other, which is crazy to me. Crazy to me. So I don't know who Jamal really wants to fight. And then, you know, you got this video that came out where Jamel was kind of like ranting about, I guess he was insinuating that his brother, he would have never turned down a fight with Canelo. A lot of people took that as a duck. Oscar came out and said they sent Jamal a contract and they turned it down. So I don't know the full details, but all I know is that Jamal, I don't know. From what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like he's being ducked from Canelo. So we're going to remove him out the situation. Now, here comes Andre. Andre is a completely different story because I've been following the Andre situation from 154 because I was making videos back then. Andre is a little different because Andre wanted the Canelo fight at 154. Andre was a WBO champion at 154. Now, around that time, Canelo did fight Lara. Legit. Solid. Whether you think, I'm not even talking about whether you think he won or not. Canelo didn't have to fight Lara, and he fought Lara when Andre was champion. Solid move. Oscar didn't want him to take the fight. Canelo wanted the fight. He didn't even want the belt. He didn't even want Lara's belt. He said, I'll just fight you just to fight you, just because Lara stepped to him. Mad respect for that. But after that fight, Andre was a champion, and Andre and Canelo went to fight James Kirkland while Andre was a champion. Now, anybody's going to say, well, he didn't have to fight Andre because Andre didn't fight anyone. Okay, cool. He went on to fight Cotto. Cotto's fight, anybody's going to fight Cotto, especially because at that time, Cotto was still more of a cash cow over Canelo. So he takes the Cotto fight. So he fights Kirkland and Cotto. Andre ends up getting stripped because he's inactive. He's not fighting anyone. And eventually, Canelo fights Liam Smith for that very same WBO title. Why not fight Andre for it when Andre had it? Cool. We go to 160. Canelo beats Triple G in a rematch. Whether you think he won or not, that's not up for debate right now. We're just trying to get through it. It's for 3 of the 4 titles. Andre has 1 title. Canelo goes on to fight Daniel Jacobs, a black fighter, a respectable black fighter, a proven black fighter. Doesn't fight Andre. Andre is available. He goes up to fight Kovalev at 175. People say that is a more proven fight for going up 2 divisions to fight for another title. But you were only 1 fight away for fighting and being undisputed, potentially. You could have been undisputed. I have a problem with that because I feel that undisputed trumps winning titles in different divisions. Plus, this is the second opportunity for you to have to fight Andre, and you didn't take it in 2 different divisions where Andre is an actual champion. He comes out at some point saying he's boring, no one is interested in him, yada, yada, yada. Of course, Canelo fans, they're going to defend that. They're going to double down on that. Who did Andre face? Well, he didn't face anyone because no one wants to actually fight him. If Canelo doesn't want to fight him, and Triple G doesn't want to fight him, and Jamal Charlo doesn't want to fight him, who is he going to fight that anyone care about? Billy Joe Sammons didn't want to fight him neither because Billy Joe got caught testing dirty. He tested dirty, and then he went up to 168. So who did Andre have the opportunity to fight? You have to really go back and dig all the way back with the fallen Rock Nation deal, where he was supposed to sign with Showtime, fight Jamel, fight Lara. We have to go back to 2014 for that. All right? So I don't like the Andre move. I don't like it. Andre is a back fighter. But let's not get crazy and say that Canelo doesn't like black fighters. You can't base that off the Andre situation. You know what I'm saying? You can't just say like, okay, he didn't fight Andre, but he ducks black fighters. You can't say that. You can't do it. That's the very extreme. And this is what I'm trying to like, this is where I'm going with it. We're going to the extreme, and even the people that slandering Bud right now, they're going to the absolute extreme, because they were doing it when Bud was same thing with Bud. Now Bud hasn't fought. Everybody has reduced Bud back down because of his comments. They're going to the exact extreme. Oh, well, Bud made these comments. Well, his resume sucks and he never fought anybody. Now we're going back to that. People were going to it before with the ESPN pound for pound ranking. They put Bud over Canelo, right? And people slandered Bud for it. He never fought anyone. Well, see, this is what I mean about extremes. What black fighters have? Well, the black fighters that are available don't want to fight him because they're on the PBC side. And this is the problem with fans. Bud should be getting slandered because he's wrong. And Canelo has a better resume than him. Overall, he does. There's no way you can argue that Bud has a better resume than Canelo. There's no way. There's no way possible. What you can say is that at least Bud is undisputed, and that at least there's no questionable wins on his resume. You know, there's no test that he popped dirty on. Now, he was clear with the tainted meat thing, but there's nothing there with Bud that makes you question his boxing ability or his wins or anything like that. You know, but people are going to the extremes. And another thing is too, can we please not make this, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Let's not make this into, let's stop the generalizing, okay? Because Bud made these comments and people are saying that black fighters are not fighting black fighters. Now, there are a lot of black fighters that are not fighting black fighters. I agree. Jamal Charlo, I brought that up. Why hasn't Jamal Charlo fought Daniel Jacobs yet? Why hasn't he fought Demetrius Andrade yet? I agree. There's a lot of fighters that are not fighters that are black that haven't fought in any, whatever. But don't make it only the black fighters are doing that type of thing. Because that's not true. Because there's plenty of boxers, all ethnicities, that are doing the same thing. From the European fighters, the Hispanic Latino fighters. You can say the same about every single one of these fighters. We can't just say that Tank and the PBC. And I think that's another thing too. I think people hate the PBC so much, or the LDBC here on YouTube. I think people hate them so much that they just start thinking that it's a black thing. And it's not just a black thing. It's not just a black fighter thing. There are plenty of black fighters that have been trying to fight other fighters, whether they're European, whether they're Hispanic. There are plenty of fighters that been trying to get fights with certain fighters that can't get it. Why isn't Triple G fighting Demetrius Andrade? You know, Jaime Munguia, what's up with him? Why at 154? Why did he beat Saddam Ali up but didn't fight Jamel Charlo, Jared Hurd, Julian Williams, Irislandi Lara? He goes up to 160. Why is he fighting Andrade? Why is he fighting Charlo? Why doesn't he fight any of the real black fighters? Why didn't Oscar Valdez fight Gary Russell Jr.? Why didn't Leo Santa Cruz fight Gary Russell Jr.? And they're both PBC fighters. Why didn't Leo Santa Cruz fight Guillermo Rigondeaux at 122? We could say the same about whoever. It's not a black fighter thing. It's a fighter thing. This whole Canelo and Andrade thing that I just talked about had nothing to do with race. It's just he does not want to fight Andrade specifically. But he fought Jacobs. And for some strange reason, Jacobs is no longer considered black. His card was revoked, signing over to Eddie Hearn. So listen, I get you guys hate certain groups, certain networks. I get it, but let's not get like some of you go so extreme and you forget what's actually going on here. Boxers avoid certain boxers. It is what it is. Why didn't Pacquiao fight Bud at top rank? Why didn't he fight him then? You know, like fighters duck fighters. It is what it is. It's no. This is nothing new here. The only thing is y'all making it seem like it's a race thing, and Bud should be slandered because of what he said. He made it about it. So I agree with the slander, but let's not just completely dismiss every single thing that he's done up to this point. You're allowed. We're all allowed to question him. Like the thing with Bud. My problem with Bud is the thing with Bud, and I'm not making any excuses for him. He's been saying a lot of things lately, and I think a lot of it is due to frustration of people telling him how much he should get paid. People are telling him what he's deserved and what he's worth. He's hearing people tell him what he hasn't done. He hasn't done enough to earn a Spence fight. Yada, yada, yada. Spence has clearly shown no interest in wanting to fight him since the time that they were face-to-face talking at the other Maurice Hooker fight. When they were backstage and they were going back and forth, there was never, from that day, Spence has never been interested in wanting to take in that fight. It was always strap season until Bud actually won a strap. It was win a strap first, and then once he won a strap, it was, all right, well, you on the wrong side of the street. But you guys don't want to, you know, people want to bring up Bud and who he didn't fight and stuff like that. Danny Garcia tweeted that he wanted to fight Jeff Horn when Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao. But as soon as Bud won the title, whole different story. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys got to pay attention to how people are moving. Canelo, yes, there's some people that he didn't fight, you know, at the times we wanted to fight on what it made sense. But at the same time, D-Style, thank you, brother. Are you going on today, like in the daytime? If you're going on tonight, I can't do tonight, but if you're going on during the day, let me know. If you're going on, and I saw a Kano Loco on here too. But just hit me up. Just hit me up. But yeah. And thank you for the super chat. Yo, what was I saying? I lost my thought. Damn, I forgot who I was just talking about. Who was I just talking about? Thursday. We'll talk later. We'll talk later because I just totally lost my thought of what I was saying. What was I saying? Guys, help me out. Guys, help me out. What was I saying? Damn, I totally lost my thought. Yeah, old age. What the hell was I just saying this now? I was talking about Spence. I was talking about Spence, and all right. So look, this is what I was saying. There's a lot of fighters that didn't fight over the years that we wanted to see them face when we wanted to see them face them. You know, I mean, even Floyd did it. When I was talking on the channel back then, I really, really wanted Floyd to fight Erislandy Lara when Floyd was holding titles at 154. I even wanted him to fight Andre back then too. But see, Floyd and Canelo, and I feel like Canelo is the second, you know, I feel like Canelo moves exactly like Floyd. I feel like everything Canelo is doing is exactly what Floyd is doing, because Canelo will fight either his mandatories outside of the mandatory thing, because Canelo wasn't a mandatory. I mean, Floyd wasn't a mandatory guy. Floyd would fight current or like recent champions that had names. He never actually fought who people felt was the toughest fighters. No, I don't want to say never because I'm wrong by saying that. But usually he would fight guys that were extremely credible and he was consistent. But there were other dangers in there, but some of those dangers weren't the actual popular fighter, like a Lara, like an Andrade. He fought Canelo. So Canelo was worth the risk because Canelo had a big name, a big following, and his buzz was crazy. And a lot of people thought Canelo was going to beat him. And I remember doing videos on that fight. I did videos. That was my second prediction video I ever done on this channel, is when Canelo fought Floyd. And a lot of people thought Canelo was going to beat Floyd. Floyd did have a rehydration clause, but so did Canelo. Canelo had a rehydration against Kovalev and didn't need it. He went with the IBF rules when the IBF rules weren't in effect. Canelo's do the same thing. He does the same thing. You want to fight Kovalev? Fight Kovalev when he was the crusher. When he was fighting 4 times a year. No one did that. No one wanted to fight him then. Fight him now. He just got beat up by Yard. I mean, he won the fight, but he was beaten up by Yard, and now he has to do a rehydration clause. A couple months later. He had no time to you know what I'm saying? Like, he fought him right after. So if you're gonna blame Floyd for putting up the rehydration clause or catch weight, Canelo did the same thing. These fighters do it. They all do it. Stop making it about race. Stop making it about race. They all do it. If they have the advantage of doing it, they're gonna do it. Whatever advantage they can have. Cotto was doing it. Cotto had a clause against Daniel Gill. Even Daniel Gill, he didn't feel fully comfortable fighting him at 160. You guys remember that? I was making videos about it back then. Where were you guys? Some of you guys were here. You meaning to tell me you don't feel comfortable with fighting Daniel Gill? A full-fledged Daniel Gill? That's what A-side fighters do. Cotto, Canelo, Pacquiao, Floyd, they all did it. Catch weights, rehydration clauses to have an advantage. Sergio Martinez, you know, it's all about timing. Sergio Martinez was slipping. To be fair, Cotto was small. Okay, yeah, he was small. But if you want to go to 160, you fight at 160. You fight there. If you want to really be the best, you go up there and do it. And that's my issues with jumping around in different weight classes. Nah, become undisputed. Canelo was one fight away from becoming undisputed. And guess what? I think Canelo can beat Andrade. I think he can beat Andrade. I think he could beat him. But for some reason, he just don't want to fight him. Doesn't want to do it. You know? All the fighters do it, bro. All of them do it. Shout out to everyone's here. Hit that like button, man. Yeah, but Terrence Crawford, look, man, I don't know where the Canelo thing came from. I don't know if it was the slander that he got from the Canelo people, because Canelo was his fans were slandering him hard, you know, a few months back because of the whole pound for pound thing. But regardless, all that stuff, that's not true. Bud need to focus on Bud. Focus on right now. Terrence Crawford need to focus on making that Sean Porter fight, because he makes that Sean Porter. Yo, Sean Porter, you can shut the mouths of a lot of people if you push to make that fight happen. Because for some apparent reason, I don't know, like Sean Porter, I don't know why the fight is not being made. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know who to blame. I'm not even believing when I'm seeing in interviews. The Sean Porter fight should just be getting made. There should be nothing blocking that fight. It's beneficial for both fighters because Porter has the opportunity in exposing Terrence Crawford as a 147 fighter. And Bud has the opportunity to shut the mouths of anyone on that side that thinks he's not legit. So I don't know what's up with Bud and Porter. I don't know who's to blame in that. I don't know why this fight is not working out. If Bud doesn't like if Porter doesn't like the money, then he could go to purse bid. But you exercise your number one ranking position to get that fight, to push for that fight. And that's the end of that. We don't need to worry about what Bob Arum is offering to pay you. We don't need to worry about any of that. That shouldn't even be an issue. Yeah, call the bid. Call the bid. And if Porter doesn't go down, fight Ortiz. Fight Ortiz. Who cares if he's young? Teofimo Lopez beat Lomachenko. He was young. There was a large age gap there. He went and did it. Ortiz is ready. Excuse me. We don't need to hold him back. Ortiz is ready. And if he's not ready, well, let him prove whether or not he's ready or not. But that fight needs to go down if Porter don't go down. You know what I'm saying? High tech, absolutely. Age doesn't matter when you got skills. I know you guys been leaving comments, but I've been just trying to go off on this because I'm actually just tired of. Again, I always say it's nothing wrong with having racial bias, okay? But you leave that there. When you want to have racial bias from race or your background or whatever country or whatever part of the world you're from, there's nothing wrong with that. But just when you say that a fighter is specifically avoiding other fighters when they fought those same fighters, like you better make sure you're right. You better make sure there's a history of that, because there's not a history of that. There's not really a real solid history of that when it comes to Canelo. Canelo's fighting Billy Joe Saunders next. Billy Joe Saunders is slicker than most of these fighters that are black, and he's not black. You know what I'm saying? Whether you like Saunders or not, he's slicker than just about all of these fighters that we're talking about here. So I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like if Billy Joe Saunders was a black man, but he fought the exact same way, we would be considering him to be a black fighter, right? The way he moves, the way he boxes, this is what I'm saying. That's why we got to stop generalizing. What about Tyson Fury? He's slicker than any other heavyweight that's in the game. He's not black. So let's stop that. G-Funky, yeah, absolutely. Billy Joe Saunders is slicker than Charlo. Absolutely. Absolutely. It is what it is. I'm not saying he's better than him. I'm just saying we're just talking about the way he fights. The way he fights, he doesn't fight like, I don't know. I don't know what a black man's supposed to fight like, because James Kirkland is a black fighter and he fights completely different from all of these other guys I just mentioned. James Kirkland fights like a quote unquote Mexican fighter. But all Mexican fighters don't fight like that. So stupid. It's just like, yo, what do you, I don't know, man. I get annoyed by that. Like, yo, just look at the fight, and every fighter is their own individual, man. Like, whatever way they choose to fight, that's them. That's their style. It's good. It's good to compare them to, but don't just like, all right. They said the same thing about Floyd years ago. Floyd don't fight black fighters. They said the same thing on YouTube years ago. Floyd don't fight black fighters. You know that was a thing on YouTube like maybe 5 years ago. Floyd don't fight black fighters. People were running around on YouTube saying that. Yeah, I remember. Anyway, rest in peace, Marvin Hagler, man. Rest in peace to him, man. You know, when he was running, when he was doing his thing, and he was running the division, you know he was the best. And what made him great was that he could do everything. You know what I'm saying? He had power in both hands. He could slugger it out. He can technically outbox you. His punch resistance was crazy because of that head he had. You just knew he was the best. It was never any question. It was no question. Undisputed. X amount of wins, the title defenses. There was no, you go down as, you know, he didn't have a bunch of titles in different divisions or anything like that, but you knew he was the best. You knew it. There was no question. The only mistake he made was at the very end when he fought Ray Leonard, and he went in there playing around, starting out as a righty. You know, playing around, giving away rounds, stuff like that. That's why he lost the fight. But you knew who he was. Like, people knew. I'm not from that time. Obviously, I'm much younger. I wasn't there to witness it. But going back and watching the fights and you know, watching docs in the past of him and stuff like that, he knew the aura was different. It was no question. Some of these fighters, you knew who the best was. You knew. It wasn't weird. Like, it wasn't like the way it is today where you got two rivals that are sitting at the division together with titles, and you don't know who's the best because they just won't fight each other. Because they rather just play it safe and just not fight. You know, you knew who it was. It wasn't no watered down version of the titles. His title defenses were legit. And back then on YouTube, another thing was going on. If you guys weren't here back then, it was guys saying Triple G was better than Hagler. Triple G was making baby belt title defenses and racking up defenses. He didn't even have the full title. But I'm not going to try to talk about Triple G. Yo, let me tell you what was happening back in 2014 on YouTube. For the people that weren't here, Triple G was making a killing. He was running through guys, and at the time, no one wanted to fight him. Peter Quillen was on the Showtime side. Shout out to Peter Quillen. Peter Quillen was on the Showtime side, right? So he was making his title defenses over there. But on the HBO side, you had Triple G. Sergio Martinez didn't want to fight. Julio Cesar Chavez didn't want to fight. All right, so Triple G was running through whoever. And then people were saying that Triple G won't fight any black fighters. So when he fought Curtis Stevens, when he fought Curtis Stevens, people were like, Curtis Stevens is going to beat him. He's a black fighter. Willie Monroe Jr., he's slick. He's going to expose Triple G. This is what people were saying at the time. Now, Triple G resume was shaky, but I understood that a lot of people didn't want to fight him. When Cotto won the title, Cotto didn't want to fight. And at the same time, you had guys like Canelo that was still at 154. People wanted Triple G to fight. He wanted him to go up and fight. Triple G, when Canelo went up to fight Chavez Jr. at a higher, at 168 at a catch weight, people were like, yo, Canelo's ducking him. But there was a point where no one really wanted to fight Triple G. Lara said that he wanted to fight. That was the only fighter that people said that, he wanted to fight. And Triple G came back like, yo, these guys ain't still in the contract, yada, yada, yada. But the problem with Triple G is that his fans started just going off the rails and saying like he's the greatest middleweight of all time. He's better than all of these great middleweights from the past. And they were specifically targeting Hopkins, guys like Hagler. This is what people were saying back then. Yeah, Ward wanted to come down. I'll fight you at a catch weight. I'll come down to 164. No, not yet. No, not yet. When they asked him in the interview, no, not yet. But people were saying that he would beat Ward. Ward took his challenge. He didn't want to take it. That's what was going on. And I love Triple G. Ain't no Triple G hate. That's my guy. I love Triple G. But again, this goes to saying like there's a lot of fighters that didn't fight people that were extremely challenging. They took other routes. They fought other good fighters, great fighters, but they were more likely to, they were more winnable fights. They were more likely, they wouldn't be as difficult. So shout out to Coach K, yo. My man Zone 6. He was here. Zone 6 was here. Zone 6 was here. Tearing people up in those live debates in the Lions Den. He remember. A lot of people remember this. But yo, rest in peace Hagler. What he had to go through. He had to get bottles and stuff thrown at him from winning his first title. That's crazy. Imagine you winning your first title and they run you out the ring like that. These guys today, they are so, and I mean all of them. All of them. These guys today ain't go nothing what these fighters went through back then. They ain't go through nothing that. They're so privileged, bro. It's crazy how privileged they are and making it seem, and they don't want to keep it real. And what I do like about the fight, what I will say about the fighters today is financially, they're smarter. They're definitely smarter, and I salute salute to Floyd Mayweather for making them smarter. A lot of the fighters today are a lot smarter because they are not being ran to the ground by their promoters. And I think that's the problem with Bob Arum and like some of these outrageous comments that he's been making about guys like T.O. and Terrence Crawford, slandering them to the public, is because guys like Bob Arum and Barry Hearn, like those guys talking about, being slave owners and all of that. And just some of the comments that Bob is so old school that he's from a time when the promoter ran the sport and the boxers were just under them doing whatever they wanted them to do. He's not from the time today where fighters, they take to social, they're more vocal about what they want. They're open. They're speaking to the media about everything. They're speaking to even YouTubers about everything. They're opening up and they're smarter. They're making smarter moves and stuff like that. And I think the problem with Bob is he doesn't really understand that these fighters are not going to just do what you want them to do, you know? So I like that it's changed in that sense, but the double-edged sword with that is now boxers are being so calculated with every single move. Plus, they're not gonna fight that much. Most of these fighters are gonna end up retiring. I think me and Punch Drunk was talking about that the other day. A lot of these fighters are gonna end up retiring with less than 40 fights on there. And I'm talking about the very elite fighters are gonna end up retiring with less than 40 fights in their record. You know? You know, so I think I think that's it's a double-edged sword, you know. I think the fans and I think the fans what they don't understand, what a lot of you guys don't understand is that we're a cult. Like there's not a lot of us. Boxers, people don't follow boxing like that. They really don't. So we, especially us Americans, I can't speak for other countries because I'm not there. I don't know, you know, I know a lot of countries out in Europe, they're more willing, more likely to hold their fighters down. I know American fans, the people that bash Bud the most are probably more Black American fans, unfortunately, because he's not on the PBC side, right? So we need to do a better job at calling these fighters out at what they do and pushing them to fight certain fighters, you know, because it's just, we are so in love with certain fighters that whatever they do, we're going to ride or die for them. But if they're ducking fighters or avoiding fighters or moving like on some real corny way, we let it slide because we love them, or we either love the network that they're on and stuff like that. And I think that's part of the reason why fighters are just going with the flow, you know, because when Spence said, yo, he's on the wrong side of the street, there were people there cheering for Spence for saying that. And that's part of the problem right there. And I'm like, yo, that was never a thing until he said it. It was never a thing. We even say it now, wrong side of the street. He's on the wrong side of the street. That was never a thing. Now, fighters were definitely doing it, like those top ranked guys back then, Bradley, Pacquiao, Marquez, a lot of those guys over there were definitely doing it. They were staying on their side. You know, that WBO strap was a top ring strap, and these guys would rather rematch each other than fight the Porters, to fight the Thurmans. But now it's happening on the PBC side, and people are letting it slide. And my thing is, I don't want it to happen anywhere. I didn't want it to happen on Top Rank, and I don't want it happening on a PBC. I just want fighters to fight each other. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking for the best to fight the best. You know? And the problem is, too, is that fans are only calling it out, you know, against the fighters that they dislike. But when their fighter does the same thing, they let it slide. Anyway, I think I said everything I wanted to say about the Bud Terrence Crawford situation. You know, like I said, in all of that, you know, I don't think Bud is really following what everything moved with Charlo and Andrade and stuff. You know, I really hope Charlo, Jamal ends up fighting like someone that we really want to see him fight. Like, I hope he ends up fighting Andrade. If he's gonna stay at 160, I hope he fights Andrade. You know, I don't know if Triple G is, you know, Triple G don't seem to be interested in fighting him. But if there was ever a time or period where there was an option there, I would hope he would get the fight. If not, hopefully he fights Danny Jacobs. Hopefully he fight Benavidez. You know, he's talking a lot of trash to Benavidez. I hope he fights Benavidez. You know, um, I hope that, you know, Andre fights someone. I hope someone steps up and fight him before he's too old, you know, because he's definitely moving up there. He's like definitely like, I think he's like 34, 35 at this point, and he still hasn't fought one real big name yet, you know. I think he's going to be fighting Liam Williams, and it's not a bad fight. But again, even if he is to win that fight, people are going to still view Andre the same way. No one's going to really care about it. You know what I'm saying? And it's going to keep happening. Um, as far as Bud, listen, if you fight Porter, fight Porter. If you can't fight Ortiz, you know, I know Ortiz is young. I know he's not really that proven yet, but he has a fan base. He's looking to he looks very, very, it looks like he's gonna have a great future. And we'll see. Somebody asked me about Jaron Ennis the other day about who do I think is better between the two of them now that we've seen Ortiz fight Hooker. The thing is, I want to see how Ennis looks against Lipinets, and then we can revisit that conversation, because Ortiz just fought a former champion at 140. And Lipinets is a former champion at 140 as well. And, you know, he did retire Lamont Peterson, but, you know, I mean, he's never been stopped. I know Mikey was the only one that dropped him. I am looking to see what Ennis can do against Lipinets, you know? So I am waiting to see what that fight looks like. You know, I want to see how Ennis looks when he steps up, because Lipinets is much better than anyone that Ennis has fought up to this point. So I would love to see how Ennis looks there. And if Ennis can look and actually stop Lipinets, that would be very, very impressive, because Lipinets has never been stopped. And actually, I would be a little bit more impressed with the win, because Lipinets been at 147 a little longer than Hooker. And he's actually had fights there, and he's never been stopped. He lost to Mikey, but he gave Mikey a good fight. You know, Jose Ramirez actually stopped Hooker. So I would like to see what Ennis can do, and then we can revisit that conversation on who I think is the better between the two right now. I personally think Ennis is going to beat him. All right, but we'll never know, because there's some things that Lipinets can possibly expose about Ennis that we haven't seen. You know, Ortiz did take a lot of shots from Hooker. Defensively, he didn't look great, but he got the job done. And sometimes you're not going to look great defensively when you fight certain fighters, because if you're looking to get stopped, if you're looking to get a stoppage, you're going to get pieced up a little bit. It happened with Bud and Velasquez. Very dangerous puncher. I knew Bud would win, but I was a little nervous of Bud going into that fight, because I knew how much of a puncher Velasquez is. And not only that, but I didn't think Bud was going to go and exchange with him like the way he did. I didn't think he would fight him like that. And when he fought him like that, he got hit a lot more than we're used to seeing him get hit. I thought he was going to take the same approach he took against a Felix Diaz. You know, I thought he was going to take that approach. He didn't really take that approach. He kind of went straight at him. He got the stoppage, but he got hit a lot, you know. Povetkin, White, breakdown. I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. That'll be out tomorrow. Give me one more day to think about it, because I haven't fully decided. The breakdown is easy. It's more about who am I going to pick to win. That's going to be hard to really choose because we saw what happened in the first fight. I'm curious to know what Povetkin is going to be like coming off having COVID and delaying the fight twice. Plus, not only that, but he did get dropped twice in the first fight. But Dillian is the one that got knocked out. And I find it kind of strange because Dillian White, his name has been circling around with a lot of other fighters, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, stuff like that. And I just find it kind of strange because, listen, if he ends up getting knocked out again, he's not going to be considered amongst any of those guys if he is to get knocked out again, back to back like that. So hopefully he is fully focused on Povetkin. Hopefully they worked on some things that can make him because I am rooting for Dillian White. I just don't know if he's going to be able to win the fight. But we'll see. You know, I'll do a breakdown and I'll probably have it out by tomorrow. You know, if not later this evening, I'll definitely have a breakdown by tomorrow. And that's how I feel, you know. You said White got some serious resistance issues. I don't think so. I don't think he has serious resistance issues. I just think that he got caught with Povetkin's super special move punch. You know what I'm saying? And it was perfectly landed. And I think Povetkin could have knocked many people out with that one punch. You know? I saw the Beterbiev versus Dynas fight. I didn't get to make a video on it, but I guess I'll talk about it now because I wanted to make a video about it. So I don't know where to take it because Beterbiev, he's been out for a while, right? He beat Volzdik a couple years ago, retired him. He was supposed to have a fight with Manlong, right? Which I think is would have been a better fight. That got delayed a couple times due to COVID, and you know, I guess that fight just never happened. So Dynas was the fighter that he ended up facing, and then he caught COVID, and then he had an injury, so it got delayed a couple more times. So he had this fight, and I saw the fight. Wasn't impressed. In fact, this was probably the least impressive fight I've seen of Beterbiev in a long time, if not ever. I wasn't impressed, but I wasn't sure if there's. I don't know if he was rusty. I don't know if he was just trying to get the rounds in and he was fighting on the level of his opponent, which is a very, very big possibility. But I wasn't that impressed with him. You know, he is coming off a surgery. He is coming off of COVID, and he has been inactive for a long time. So he could have possibly been a little out of it, but he was able to, you know, still secure the stoppage. I know he got an early knockdown in there somewhere, and he did what he had to do. He did what he had to do, though, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah, punch quote, absolutely. He had to lay off. Yeah, he had the surgery. You know, COVID early in the year, but yeah, not that impressive. Wasn't that impressive. All right. I was reading the comments of the fight. I was watching it on YouTube, and people were right away, oh, COVID. Oh, I mean, not COVID. Canelo would destroy this dude. This is the guy that people think Canelo can't beat. Yada yada. There was a whole bunch. It was an army of Canelo people in the comments, and I'm like, Canelo is not even in the conversation right now. You know, but it was a mob of Canelo people in there, and I'm like, what can you do, man? It's like, what are you gonna do? You know, it's no Bevel. You know, no one's talking about Bivol. No one's talking about Joe Smith Jr. He was like, Canelo, destroy this dude. And I'm like, Canelo's not even at 175 right now. Why are we talking about Canelo? It's funny. Uh, Joe Smith Jr. is a real dangerous fighter for Better BF, and that's not because of his last performance. I'm just saying that in general. I think Joe Smith Jr. is just always dangerous for anyone because his punch resistance is high and he hits hard as hell. All right. And he comes to fight. He's not in there. We saw what happened with the Callum Johnson fight with Better BF. Callum Johnson was able to drop Better BF. He's a big puncher. I just think Joe Smith Jr. is a big puncher as well. But I think his punch resistance is probably a lot better. And he's been in there with a lot better fighters than Callum Johnson. I think Joe Smith is like always going to be a wild card at 175 because he's one of those guys that you would think certain fighters could beat him, but he could mess around and he could spoil some plans. You know, remember, Bivol beat him, but anytime Bivol got caught clean by Joe Smith Jr., he got rocked. He just recovered pretty well after each shot. You know, Joe Smith Jr. is a real deal. So a very dangerous fight for anyone, not just Better BF, anyone. And Bivol, very good boxer. He's actually my personal favorite at 168. 175. I'm sorry. I don't know if he could beat Better BF, but we'll have to keep seeing and see what's going on. And Joe Smith Jr. is actually fighting Vlasov soon, and I expect Joe Smith to win, but if he can't hurt Vlasov and it becomes a fight on points, I can see Vlasov giving him a good fight, you know? Joe can punch. Yeah, absolutely. He's legit. Leave Joe Smith Jr. alone, yo. Just like, to me, honestly, yo, I mean, I'm not a fighter, but if I was at 175, I wouldn't fight Joe Smith Jr. unless I had to. You know, because he's just one of those fighters that he doesn't care. He's going to come straight at you. And he can punch. Joe Smith is very, very underrated. You know, because he has no charisma. You know, you interview him, he's just like a regular guy. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't say anything. He's not arrogant. He's kind of just like there. He has no, like, he doesn't show much of a personality. He's just chilling. And when he fights in there, it's like, bro, he's a beast. You know? M Stack said, damn, do you defend any black fighters like you do Joe Smith and Canelo? Are you talking to me or are you talking to somebody? I think he's talking to somebody in the comments. I like to see Bivol versus Better BF. Me too. I don't think Canelo would beat I don't think Canelo would beat. I don't think he would, but I think he would have a hard time against Bivol. For some reason, I think Bivol would really give Canelo a hard. I think that would be his hardest fight at 175. Like, I think Better BF would be dangerous for Canelo because of his punch. But if Better BF can't hurt Canelo, I can see Canelo outboxing him. I'm not too sure if Better BF can beat not Better BF. I don't know if Canelo can beat Bivol. Bivol is a fantastic boxer. You know, just my opinion. Joe Smith Jr. is New York strong. What's up, Arlette? Yo, you, I totally apologize too because I missed you shout out to your daughter. I know your daughter had a recent birthday, and I think you hit me the couple times you hit me. I wasn't on the air or or whatever, but I did see it. And happy belated birthday to your daughter. Victor, I spoke about Virgil Ortiz in Crawford all video. Basically, I said that not wanting to give a fight, we'll see, and we'll wait and see, because I'm not sure if Bud really doesn't want the fight, as in avoiding him. I'm waiting to see what happens with Porter. And if he doesn't fight Porter, I'm expecting him to fight Virgil, because Virgil will be right up there in the rankings. So I don't know what's going to happen with Bud. I know he's waiting for the Manny Pacquiao thing, but it doesn't look like that Manny Pacquiao thing is going to happen. So if the Manny Pacquiao thing doesn't happen, I'm waiting for a Porter or an Ortiz, or Virgil Ortiz. That's what I'm waiting for. So I'm just waiting. I'm not going based on what Crawford said at the moment that Ortiz won, because we know Crawford has other interests and bigger interests than Ortiz. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think Battle Jack, I don't think he should retire. I just think at this point he's going to be a gatekeeper for guys at 175. I don't think he can beat the top guys at 175. But I think he'll be a good fight in between for any 175 champion, or for any fighter that's coming up that's looking to get a championship fight. I don't know why people want Canelo to fight at 175 when he's 5'8". Well, because he moved up to 175 and won a title there. So that's why people bring him up. Victor, I want Virgil to fight any top fighter at 147. It doesn't have to be specifically, but if it's him, that's cool. If it's Spence, that's cool. If it's Ugas or Danny Garcia, that's cool. I don't think any of those fights are going to happen. I think the most likely one that's possible is probably Crawford. But I would love for him to fight any of those guys, and I would like to see him fight Jaron Ennis if Ennis is the fight. Excuse me. Also, some of the other guys I mentioned before, David Avanesian, all right, who just beat Josh Kelly. That would be a good fight for Virgil Ortiz. Conor Ben, that's another good fight. That would be a good fight. Any of those PBC guys, if that's a possible fight, those are all good. Anyone that's top guys at welterweight is cool. Rashidi Ellis, I think a lot of us forget that he's out there still. I don't think he's promoted well enough. And the fact that he's a Golden Boy fighter, I just don't think he's promoted well enough. Rashidi Ellis' name should be up there with guys at welterweight, top fighters at welterweight. I don't know why Rashidi Ellis' name just doesn't come up in possible future fights with all of these guys. I have a huge problem with that. So if Rashidi Ellis is there, Jaron Ennis is there, Conor Ben, David Avanesian, yes, we know all the big name people. We know the Thurmans, we know the Porters, we know all of these guys. Ugas' name is a big name now, apparently. But yes, Yono, I agree. Ellis needs to leave Golden Boy, because they're not doing anything with him, and his name never comes up at all. And he's right there. He's right there he's been around longer than Ortiz, and they never pushed him. So I don't know why he's there, I don't think Danny. The thing about Danny Garcia is a lot of guys move up in weight, but they'll move up in weight and fight guys that moved up too. I don't think Danny is actually going to go up there to fight Jamel Charlo or Julian Williams. I think at the very most, we may get to see him fight Tony Harrison at the very, very most, at the highest level. But I don't think he's going to be fighting going up to 154 to actually fight. I think he belongs at 147, first of all. I think he belongs there. I think it's because he's already lost to the top guys at 147. So maybe he feel like it's pointless there. But I wouldn't be surprised if, he moves up to 154, and he's still like fighting other guys that's either going to move up with him or guys that really didn't do anything at 154, since they moved up, I don't know. Danny wouldn't fight Lubin. I don't think he would fight Lubin. I don't think he would fight Lubin. Kano, Golden Boy is messing up with a lot of fighters. I know a few personally that are in court as we speak, fighting to get out away from Golden Boy. Yeah, I just feel like when it comes to Golden Boy, if it's not like Ryan Garcia or like, Virgil Ortiz Jr., and I feel like he just don't push his fighters. Sometimes I forget who signed over there, because they actually have a lot of fighters over there that's just sitting around. They're kind of on the shelf, Neri Figueroa fighting potential. I didn't even know that was a potential fight. I think I did, and maybe I just forgot. That's a good fight, and I'm leaning a little bit towards Neri. I just think he's gonna have a hard time winning, because Figueroa can probably take his punch, and Neri would have to keep working. Yeah, I think Lara can still beat Danny. Yep, old Lara can still beat Danny, in my opinion. That would be a stylistic nightmare for Danny Garcia. Even at this point, he wouldn't fight Lara. As I say, going to 54 would be more of a thing where he just won't have to cut down any longer. It's not really up there. It's not a move to really fight the very best at 154. If that was the case, he would just really go back down to 140 if he doesn't feel like, the competition is too thick at 147. I think it would be 154. It won't be if he's going to move up and fight the absolute best, he's not going to have any more of success up there. Jason Rosario versus Danny would be good. I would like that fight. I don't know about Rosario hurting Danny. I've never seen Danny really hurt. Danny is probably one of the best. He has probably one of the best chins in boxing, period. So I don't believe J-Rock and Danny would ever fight. Those Philly boys ain't going to fight each other, and they know each other. They known each other for years. So I don't think they will ever fight. Mikey Garcia is probably going to end up fighting Pacquiao. The fight's not bad. Pacquiao's been inactive since he beat Keith Thurman. It'll be 2 years by the time that Mikey and Pacquiao fights. And Pacquiao's 41, so I'm expecting a Mikey Garcia fight. I don't really expect for Pacquiao to fight Spence or Bud or any of these guys, If Danny can beat any top guy at 154, it would be Lubin, because Lubin's chin. Yeah, possible. Yeah, Danny can crack, but I don't know. Again, Lubin is still a lot more proven at 154 than Danny is, so I don't know. Harrison would beat Danny bad. Yeah, I don't see Danny fighting the very best at 154. I think his chances of beating, maybe Danny, like realistically, I think Danny would be better off fighting Thurman in a rematch. I think that's a winnable fight. I think Danny against Ugas, maybe. It's a winnable, but it's a very Danny versus Ugas to me is 50-50. I don't know how crazy that sounds to y'all, but I think that's a 50-50 fight. I'm leaning a little bit towards Prograis beating Danny. I'm leaning towards Prograis outboxing him to a decision. Yeah. I think Prograis quicker. I think he gives Danny problems, man. Winnable fight though, but I would be leaning towards Prograis. I think who else? Yeah, I think Thurman rematch would be smart. You know, I think Jesse Vargas, Ugas, Brandon Figueroa. No, Omar. I'm sorry, Omar Figueroa, not Brandon. Brandon's the smaller one. Yeah. Loma Nakatani seems next. I stated before, I think that fight is cool. You know, I like all the fights that we're hearing. I like Haney against Linares, and I like Loma against Nakatani. I mean, if they're not gonna fight each other, you know, I'm cool with those fights. If you know Ryan is gonna probably fight Fortuna, maybe Javier Fortuna. Those are all good fights. All good fights. You know, Richard Comey is still out there too. Can't forget about him. He had a good knockout comeback win. I want to see Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor versus Sean Porter. That's a hard one to call, but I want to see if Josh Taylor can beat Jose Ramirez first before we talk about what he's gonna do at 147. Canelo, as far as Canelo avoiding Golovkin, I think he fought Golovkin when it was it was more of a people believed that he had a chance of beating him. You know, Golovkin was still very good by the time that Canelo fought him the first time. You know, Ryan Garcia. No, that's not official. Ryan Garcia fighting Fortuna. I just know that he's one of the names in the bag. And one of the only other few guys available. So it's not Peter. I'm not making that official. That's just one of the names that's been talked about between him and, you know, even Devin Haney. Fortuna's name has been around. Yeah, it's not official yet, though. I like the Chisora Parker fight. You know, I wish we got it before, but we didn't. I think they're both fights both need, especially Parker. I don't know where to really rank Parker anymore, you know? Ever since the Joshua loss, he's kind of been on a downslope. He hasn't looked that impressive. He lost a White, but even in the wins that he had after that loss, I haven't been extremely impressed with him. You know, I feel like he's at his peak and I haven't seen improvement. I know he's changed trainers recently. I don't know if that's going to be for the better, but you know, I think Parker has pretty much looked like, all right, this is this. I haven't seen any progression in him since he stepped up. You know, you can even make the argument that, you know, he didn't beat Andy Ruiz. You could make an argument that that was a Ruiz win. You know, I thought it was a very close. I think it should have at least been a draw. I don't think he really beat Ruiz, you know. I don't think it was a robbery neither. I think he struggled against Takam. You know, I think he underperformed against Joshua, but I think they both underperformed. I think they both fought too safely, and I think the ref kind of screwed it up too. The referee was terrible in that fight. But he wouldn't really let them fight, you know. But Parker really didn't really bring the fight to Joshua. And then Dillian White beat him and dropped him, you know. I think Fury fight made it. Fury has a thing with making fights look worse than what they are too. So I think Chisora is gonna come to fight. He's gonna come at him, and it should be an entertaining fight, you know. Andre needs to force the fight by beating top tier opponents, or else. Well, the thing with that is, and I agree with you, Urge. It's not that I disagree with you. I think that every fighter needs to do what they have to do and stop focusing on what Canelo is doing. All right. Everybody's focused on getting the Canelo fight, but they don't want to take tough fights in between, and that pisses me off. The thing with Andre though is that no one really wants to fight him. You know, he had an opportunity to fight Saunders. Okay, the fight was set. The fight was supposed to happen. It's not his fault that Billy tested positive and Billy moved up in weight and never fought him. Andre, you know, Charlo doesn't want to fight him. Triple G doesn't want to fight him. Canelo doesn't want to fight him. There's no real options out there for him. You know, no one really wants to fight him. Does Hami Magia wants to fight him? No one wants to fight him. No one wants to fight him. So, you know, Eddie, you know, I don't know. Ortiz versus the Mean Machine. That's another fight that can happen. I brought it up in the other video, but I would love to see Ortiz against Velasquez. That would be an excellent fight. And that would be a 50-50 fight. You know? Velasquez is a much bigger puncher and proven puncher at 147. Bigger puncher than Hooker. And if he can land those same shots against Ortiz, don't know if Ortiz can take those shots. At the same time, can Velasquez deal with Ortiz and his pressure and his body punching? I don't know. You know, I don't know who wins that fight. That's a 50-50 fight. I would love to see that fight. Those are fights I would love to see if he doesn't get the championship fight. If he doesn't fight Crawford, you know, that's a great fight too. Great fight. All right. All right, guys. I'm checking out, man. It was good live. Been on here for an hour and a half. If you haven't already, make sure, you know, like the video, support the channel. That really helps when you like the video. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Oh, I'll answer that. That would be the last question as far as Wilder. I don't know what Wilder is doing, man. I have no idea. I mean, I'm expecting him to come back and fight some kind of tune-up. It's just that I don't know who he wants to fight. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he's coming back. I have no idea. I have no idea what Wilder's going to do, man. Just not hearing anything from him and not knowing what they're doing. I don't know, but I think he's wasting valuable time. And I think he needs to get back in there against anyone, man. I know he's not. I think it's because he got. I think a lot of it is, yeah, he lost the fight and he didn't get the fight with Fury. But I question whether or not Wilder is still hungry. You know, does he still care? And is he willing to train and prepare for another fight, knowing that he's not going to get a huge payday? So I just don't know, you know, does he really want to come back? I have no idea. I don't know what's up with Wilder, all right? So if he comes back, I'm expecting him to fight a tune-up, you know, one of a decent guy from the PBC, but I still want to see him fight. I still potentially want to see him fight Andy Ruiz, or, you know, I still want to see him fight Anthony Joshua, you know? All right. So anyway, I'm out, man. Peace.